Hello and welcome to the Chiara, Bazzani and Thane Heins podcast interview. Unfortunately today Chiara is not able to join us, so I'm going to do the video myself and provide everybody with as much information as they need with regards to the ReGenX Generator coil, EV Regenerative Acceleration technology, and the latest updates with regards to the Edison Motors demonstration at CÉGEP Heritage College on May 25th, and then the follow-up demonstration for CÉGEP Heritage College faculty June 16th, and the current business plans, licensing, technology center, potential satellite lab at CEGEP Heritage College, and so on. So the first thing that I'm going to do is introduce everybody to the ReGenX Generator coil, which is a bifilar wound generator coil. The bifilar coil was invented by Nikola Tesla in 1894, and it's designed to basically have two parallel windings, and which are wound on the generator or motor coil at the same time. And the idea was, with regards to energy storage, when the bifilar coil is operating, it induces high voltage in the coil, and it stores energy internally inside the coil in the electrostatic field. And what that does is, when operated above the critical minimum frequency for the coil, the ReGenX coil reverses EV regenerative braking. It reverses generator armature reaction. It reverses the counter electromagnetic torque that all generator coils produce. It reverses generator armature reaction. And instead of the coil performing negative work, system kinetic energy reduction, the ReGenX generator coil, when operated above the critical minimum frequency, it produces regenerative acceleration. So what that means is the electric vehicle is being accelerated while the batteries are being recharged. And the greater the magnitude of recharge power that is delivered to the EV's batteries in regenerative acceleration mode, the more the EV is accelerated, the more the batteries are recharged, the less plug-in recharging is required, and simultaneously with that, when the ReGenX generator coil is performing positive work and recharging the EV's battery, it's also reducing the input energy that's required by the original traction motor. So basically it's a reversal of the first law of thermodynamics. So basically the more work that the ReGenX generator does, either as a generator or in an EV, the more work that it does, the more kinetic energy increase, the more battery recharge, the less input energy is required. And in electricity generation, what that means is the prime mover power consumption that is required on load, the maximum prime mover consumption occurs on no load at rotational equilibrium. That's basically when the generator is just idling and it's not on load. And when the ReGenX generator is placed on load, instead of the input energy to the prime mover going up, because the generator would perform a counter electromagnetic torque and reduce the kinetic energy of the system, the ReGenX generator produces a complementary electromagnetic torque, which produces a torque that works in the same direction as the drive shaft torque, as the torque supplied by the prime mover, and the generator accelerates under load. And that means that no additional prime mover input energy consumption is required. And in electricity generation and then in electric vehicle operation, the EV is accelerated while recharging the batteries above the critical minimum frequency of operation, which is currently it's about 30 kilometers an hour. In our e-bike prototype, the regenerative acceleration occurs above 30 kilometers an hour, and then below 30 kilometers an hour, EV regenerative braking is maintained. So the differential that dictates whether or not the ReGenX generator coil is performing positive work or negative work is the operational frequency. So what happens as the frequency of operation increases, the inductor, the impedance of the inductor increases. And as the impedance of the inductor increases, the current carrying capacity of the coil, or the load current, the ability of the coils, the ability of the coil to conduct electric current goes down. And as the frequency goes up, the impedance goes up, the current carrying capacity goes down and down and down, and eventually the inductor chokes the current. And when that happens at basically the critical minimum frequency, the coil is forced to store energy in the electrostatic field in between the windings, just as Tesla designed it in 1894. And the coil operates basically as a multi-parallel plate capacitor, where each winding is a plate of the capacitor, and the air between the windings is the dielectric. So to put it very simply, the ReGenX generator coil performs positive work, system kinetic energy increase. It harnesses created electromagnetic field energy, which is was originally discovered by Hans Christian Ørsted in 1820. It's described in a law of physics called Ørsted's law. And the ReGenX generator coil and the ReGenX motor coil both harness created electromagnetic field energy, or I should say created and time delayed electromagnetic field energy, in order to perform positive work above the critical minimum frequency of operation. Now, below the critical minimum frequency of operation, the load current time delay, or I should say the impedance of the coil, is low enough such that current can flow normally in the coil as it would in a Faraday coil, Michael Faraday generator coil, invented in 1834. And when operating below the critical minimum frequency of operation, negative work is performed, a counter electromagnetic torque is produced, and EV regenerative braking is produced. So now all electric vehicles have the capacity to recharge themselves as they're driving. Not only recharge themselves, but recharge themselves and for the EV to be accelerated above 30 kilometers an hour. And the more power that's delivered to the EV's batteries, the more the EV is accelerated. And the only consequence of that operation is that the batteries are recharged and the plug-in recharging requirement goes down. And regenerative braking is still maintained below 30 kilometers an hour. So essentially, EV driving range is increased and EV battery requirements are reduced by 80% or more. So we introduced the technology to Edison Motors. The CEO of Edison Motors, this is an update on the commercialization progress. We did a demo on May 25th at CÉGEP Heritage College for the CEO of Edison Motors. I should say the former CEO of Edison Motors, Eric Little. And immediately following the demo, Eric said he was going to speak to Cummins and Caterpillar and order 100 kilowatt and 500 kilowatt generators for their Edison trucks, the pickup truck and the hybrid electric semi truck. Now, the importance of the ReGenX generator in the Edison truck, because the generator produces a torque that's in the same direction as the prime mover, rather than fighting or producing a counter electromagnetic torque, reducing the kinetic energy of the system and requiring an increase in prime mover input energy. Because the ReGenX generator, when it's generating electricity, is turning in the same direction as the prime mover, the Edison Motors semi-truck, the 15.7 liter diesel motor that they're currently using can be reduced to a 3 liter gas motor. And that's basically, that applies to all electricity generation. So the net reduction in input energy required in electricity generation is 80% or more net reduction. And there's basically no additional prime mover input energy is required when the ReGenX generator is placed on load. And in fact, the input to the prime mover goes down. So if you were generating a megawatt of electricity with a normal Faraday generator, you would bring your generator up to speed on no load. Then when you connected the generator to the load, to the grid, to the batteries, whatever it is, you would need to increase the mechanical power in the drive shaft from between the prime mover and the generator by a megawatt. And you would have to increase the energy consumption of the prime mover and so on and so on. Because the generator is working in opposition to the torque supplied by the prime mover. Now the ReGenX generator, on the other hand, it does not produce a counter electromagnetic torque, produces a complementary electromagnetic torque, and with regards to Newton's third law, instead of producing an equal and opposite reaction, it produces an equal and complementary reaction. So the the size of the prime mover goes down by 80% or more. The input energy required to the prime mover goes down by 80% or more. And basically what you have is a generator that's 100% net zero during the electricity generation cycle. Zero additional mechanical input power in the drive shaft, zero additional input energy to the prime mover, zero CO2 during the electricity generation cycle, zero air pollution, and zero additional cost during the electricity generation cycle. So, and then when you take that one step further with electric vehicles, now the EVs are basically being accelerated while they are driving down the road. And again, that's just obviously an added benefit to electric mobility. And so what we're working on doing right now is establishing a satellite lab at CÉGEP Heritage College. Now, the innovation was initially conceptualized by myself at CÉGEP Heritage College in 1980 during a motors and generators class. And we returned to CÉGEP in May, basically 46 years later, and we introduced the technology to the faculty. They validated the technology, and we're working on basically setting up a satellite lab at CÉGEP Heritage College so that all OEMs can come for due diligence demonstrations, and we can teach the new engineers, the new 600,000 engineers globally, about the EV Regenerative Acceleration technology. And we will be initiating manufacturing of the ReGenX Generator coils at our new manufacturing facility in Hull and in Ontario, and then extending that globally. The estimate is about at least 65 billion ReGenX generator coils will be required by 2035, and the market valuation for the ReGenX coils is in the $13 trillion range. So we will basically initiate manufacturing of the coils starting in 2027, and then licensing the manufacturing to coil manufacturing companies and OEMs starting in 2027. The licensing is free, meaning that we're basically creating joint venture partnership agreements with OEMs, and